And that's why they call it Dry January. What's going on, everybody? This is the Cover Band Confidential Podcast, the podcast for cover band musicians and band leaders to learn how to rock more and suck less. In Atlanta, Georgia, I'm Adam Johnson.
In Greensboro, North Carolina, I'm Dan Ray.
It's time to just take a little break. I think we're going to call this Dry Namuary.
Okay.
take a little time off, and then we'll see how Nam goes.
That's good. Well, I'm glad you're doing that. I will not be joining you. I've already been looking at the menus at Disney, so I got big plans.
I saw a really fascinating TikTok of a guy who did drink around the world in Epcot.
Yeah.
And he got real blurry there towards the end.
It happens. I actually joined a Facebook group recently, just a couple days ago, called Disney Day Drinkers Society. And so like they do meetups and bar crawls across Disney properties in Orlando. It's looks like fun. So
that's hilarious. Well, how was your New Year?
Quiet. I got that thing that's going around that's not COVID, but is knocking people down. And mine was not as bad as mine was not as bad as some people in the family. My kid was in her PE teacher does a holiday theater camp, and they do a show, and she ended up with laryngitis and couldn't do the show, and was like, it was a disaster. So, but apart from that, it was quiet. We all laid low. It's nice.
Well, good. So we didn't do anything terribly intense. We have some friends down the road. And we decided to do, everybody brought a board to the party.
Yes.
And you had a different letter of the alphabet.
Right.
I got the letter T. And in conjunction with the drying out due to my acid reflux, I brought a Tums board.
Yep.
It was just an assortment of antacids. And we took Pepto shots before we left. But because all these parents have little ones, we wrapped up around 9 o'clock and headed home. And that was that. But this was the first year that the whole crew, me, Amber, and both the boys made it to midnight. We toasted, and it was great. That's good.
My kid wanted to get to midnight, and I was like, nothing happens. I mean, I'll show you a ball dropping in the morning. It's not like nothing happens. It's not a big deal. And she wouldn't have made it to midnight anyway, but we did manage to make bedtime happen late, but not unreasonably so.
So we ended up, because we don't have cable, we were watching unofficial or whatever. Yeah. CBS did, theirs was like a whole country thing. They did country groups all the way to midnight. Huh. And they had, with Skinnerd headlining there at midnight.
Wow.
The craziest thing, though, that I saw was there's a country singer named Kane Brown, and a guy that I used to play with is drum tech for his band. But I just found out that his current drummer is the former drummer of a band called Issues. His name is Josh Manuel, and Issues is a very proggy metal band, and he's a fantastic drummer. And we're just watching this country thing. I was like, what in the hell is Josh Manuel doing in Kane Brown's band? But it's probably he's cashing a check, is what he's doing.
Yeah.
Not really pushing himself terribly. And Issues is actually doing their last round of shows. They're calling it quits. Their lead singer got canceled for being not a good person. And so you got to kind of go and do the next thing. But like, because all the guys in that band are like ridiculous, their bass player is the touring bass player for 21 Pilots. Like they're fine.
Wow.
They're going to be okay.
All right. Yeah.
It's all good. But yeah, it was just interesting to see some of the working folk, these sidemen that are doing these weird gigs. But it was just an observation.
That's cool.
So, we've got some band stuff to talk about, catching up. I know that we're going to hopefully hop on a Zoom call this week next week to strategize what the rest of the year looks like. And you had some stuff that you guys kind of moved around as well. You want to dig into that a little bit?
Well, yeah. So sometime back, late last year, my bassist, who we've loved, amazing bassist. She was a recent graduate of local music college's jazz program, so she could hold down like a pop standard bass line, and then when she got weird with it was great weird. It was like not a weird anybody else. Yeah, well, a very unusual jazzy weird that you just don't hear out there, but great, like very, very artistic and amazing. And then she moved to Raleigh, which is an hour and a half away, for job and social. This is a young college grad looking to start adulting in a bigger city, and that was what she was interested in. And we tried to make it work for a long time, and then it kind of came out that she was struggling to spend the money it took to get to Greensboro to rehearse with us, and if a gig was going to pay what the bar gigs that a band of our history, which is basically none, could command, which is basically $100 a head or some increment of that, but not like thousands. Really, she was game for one trip to Greensboro to rehearse. And what that doesn't allow us to do is have that weekly sort of exploratory, hey guys, we should play this kind of get together. That is part of what makes a band gel and makes a band work together. We haven't been able to do that for months. And so she and I finally had the conversation this week that the distance really isn't working, and love playing with her. Someday when I set up my, Adam Moskowitz version of the, no rehearsal required, just show up and be ready to play band, she will absolutely be on my call list. But for what we need for this brand, it's really, we need somebody local. And, she loved it, got it completely, like sent her love to everybody in the, it's all good, all really good. So we have been talking with some other players. I got a local guy named Ben who we've been messing around with in the room some. He's good. He's a good player. I'm just really spoiled. So his noodling, he can noodle too, and very proficiently. It's blues funk noodling. It's square compared to Zoe, who was spirally jazzy. So it feels pretty different, but it's still going to work. It's going to change her sound some, but I think in a way that is still plenty good, fits with the tone. And so we're excited about that change. And then having the ability to just have a standing get together every weekend, whether we have a gig or not, it's going to make a big difference in what we're doing in our momentum. So it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said about having the ability to just explore and kind of suss out everybody's sensibilities.
It's critical. It's critical. And part of the thing is Zoe being 24 constantly had like, oh, do you know this tune? And I didn't. And we'd figure it out, and it would move us somewhere in terms of what our range could be. Ben's my age, and he only knows classic rock. I've been introducing him to more modern stuff. So,
right,
that was a thing that was a unique Zoe offering that we're not going to have anymore, and we'll have to find another way to find that.
Well, as a guy who has rebuilt his band an impossible amount of times,
right?
You'll be fine.
Oh yeah.
Different and new is different and new. It's not good, it's not bad, just different and new.
That's right. And I think the fact of the momentum that we can now start to foster is really the critical thing. I'm starting to think hard about how we would position an 80s tribute brand.
Yeah.
And I've been talking with the patrons some about that and getting some feedback on some early thoughts about that. So there'll be more news about that coming to the pod, I'm sure. Not quite ready to say too much more about that, but it's exciting.
Well, that is fantastic. All right, let's move into some housekeeping stuff. It's review time for sure. This one came in right at the end of the year. This is K Sensei, 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, says, great, sensible discussions. Adam and Dan do a great job picking topics and discussing them. As a member of a popular Tom Petty tribute band out of Massachusetts, Petty Larceny,
nice.
A lot of what they talk about is very relevant. I'd love a discussion of differences between covers and tribute bands. There are pros and cons to both. Thanks, guys. So big thanks to K Sensei with Petty Larceny out of Massachusetts.
It's a really good point. It's a really good point. I think I don't know that we've ever talked about that.
I think we have, maybe not given it the full autopsy, but yeah, it's probably time to get into that. So
yeah,
put it on the list.
There you go.
If you want to hear a topic, if you want to hear your band mentioned, if you want anything mentioned about you on this show, leave a review. Easiest way to do that.
Yep, we'll do it.
Speaking of mentioning other people, we finally have a winner in our Rock Stock pedal giveaway.
Come on.
So that wrapped right as the year was closing up, and finally got in touch with the winner and got some stuff, and we'll be posting about this on socials when the episode drops. But congrats to Kyle Mink from Williamsport, PA. I think that's where they're from. That's where his band is based, at least it seems, based on their schedule. Kyle plays in a 90s band called As If, and they're out there doing the stuff.
It's a great name.
And he was really stoked. You enter these things and you feel like these things don't happen. Like, I'm not going to get anything from it. But he was super excited. He was very gracious and said he loves the content, and he tells his bandmates to listen to us all the time. And he was really like legitimately blown away that he won. So,
that's good. That's good. Yeah. Good on you, Kyle.
Yep. So enjoy your Bright Switch, and it goes to show you do win stuff if you enter. So hopefully, post NAMM we'll have some more contacts, and we'll be able to do some more cool stuff to get you guys into some neat gear. All right, Dan. So we talked about this really briefly last week, because there wasn't a whole lot that we knew about it.
Yeah, but you dug in. You now know.
Man, I went to the ends of the earth, and I even went so far as to record myself filling the form out on their site.
Nice.
In case we needed to convert it to content. But as I was doing it, I realized this is a bunch of personal information. I really can't show what I'm doing. So, maybe I just have a file of me filling something out for my own,
I mean, I'm glad you had that thought. The number of times I've had embarrassing things happen and thought, oh, this is content that,
Yeah.
So I'm glad you had a little bit, PII, self-censorship there. That's good.
It would take me probably as long to blur out all the information as it would to do all the other things.
Right,
So I'll
right.
probably just skip it.
Yeah.
But this week we want to get into this new form that you've got to fill out if you have an LLC or small business, basically.
Yeah.
And we talked about it. It was a BOLO for the BOI.
BOI.
Well, it turns out it's a BOIR, which is a report.
Yeah. BOIR.
BOIR. Yeah, it doesn't quite roll off the tongue as the other
it was
one.
more fun last week.
Yes. So starting this year in 2024, U.S. businesses need to submit a beneficial ownership information report, or a BOIR. These reports include personal information about significant people involved in the company, including owners and managers. That's a whole lot of words.
Yep.
So let's try and kind of break it down into like the need to know info. So first things first, is this different than filing or renewing your LLC? The answer is yes, it is different. Beneficial ownership information report is different from a company's incorporation or formation documents. You file those documents with the state government. We've talked about this before.
Yep.
If you're forming an LLC, you go to the Secretary of State, website, you do all of that. This one goes to the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network.
FinCEN.gov is where you're headed for this.
Yeah. And we'll definitely put the link in the show notes.
Yeah.
Basically, they passed this law. They call it the Corporate Transparency Act. The ultimate goal is to get the fishiness out of shell corporations and basically tie businesses to human beings. And that's what this basically is for. And as far as the people who need to fill these out, if you have an LLC, you need to fill it out. If you've got any sort of leadership structure in that LLC, maybe you have your band set up as a partnership in a legal sense, S Corp, C Corp, whatever, all of that information needs to be included on that BOI form. What they refer to as beneficial owners, controlled parties, and company applicants. The kind of information that you're filling in is pretty basic stuff. They're going to want your full name, your legal name, residential address, date of birth, an identification document. They're probably also going to ask for your EIN. That's what I put in. That's, what they issue when you get an LLC.
Tax ID number, basically, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Whatever you need to set up a corporate bank account is what they're looking for.
Right.
And that identification document can be a number of things. Examples of identification documents: driver's license, state ID, U.S. passport, foreign passport. And this is, again, we're getting real granular into this. I know this seems like it's just, a U.S. thing, but if you are a foreign entity, but you do business in the U.S., so maybe you're a Canadian band that maybe dips into Niagara Falls or something, this would be something that you would also need to do.
Yep.
So you aren't off the hook, you Canadians. The next question is, who or what is a beneficial owner? Because that's what this is all about, beneficial owner information report. A beneficial owner is any person or business entity that has a piece of ownership in a company. So most of these are, again, sole proprietorships or maybe a couple of folks. If you are considered a partner or a stakeholder, member, whatever legal title you have for the structure of your business, basically all of those people need to include their information in this document. And that is the thing. The beneficial owner has to be a real person. It can't be another business.
Mm-hmm.
So like if you've got an agency like I do, I can't say that if I started another LLC for just members only, I can't put the ATL Party Band's information in as the thing, even though they own technically all the assets. It still goes back to me, the person who's running all of them. So you actually have to be a person and fill out the personal stuff. They didn't want a whole lot of business information other than the EIN. Everything else was just, a copy of your driver's license and, your home address and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I did go through it. I did it twice because something didn't work the first time. Either I didn't put it in right, or I did do it like on January 1st. So maybe the system wasn't quite up and running. when I started. And it took less than 10 minutes. And it was a little confusing because you were putting the same information, especially as a sole proprietor, you put the same information in like 2 or 3 times. So you're like, am I doing this right? I will give the website credit. Above every section is a need help explanation.
Yeah.
So you click on a thing and it kind of explains it as you go. Not all government agencies are generous enough with that. So I was able to kind of fumble my way through it. But other than taking a non-shiny picture of my driver's license, it was pretty easy and didn't take hardly any time at all. That being said, the timing of getting this filed is important because we mentioned earlier there's money involved.
Yeah.
If you don't have this filed by a certain deadline, they can charge you 500 some odd bucks a day if you're in violation. So this is important to do.
Yeah.
All right, so here's the breakdown. New reporting companies formed this year. So if you form an LLC in 2024, you have 90 days from filing the incorporation documents to fill out this information. So you have to have the report sent in within 90 days of doing your actual paperwork. Existing reporting companies formed before 2024, that's us. You have a full calendar year. You have until January 1st, 2025 to fill this thing out. Once you have it filled out, though, if any information changes, you move to a different location, new people are added, you have 30 days to update that report after those things occur. So you are responsible for keeping the document up to date as far as the reporting agency goes. And of course, the last and most important thing is, how much is this going to cost me? Well, as long as you don't mess it up and file after the deadline, it's free. It doesn't cost you anything. So while setting up an LLC does, typically you incur some kind of fee. This is just something that you spend 10 minutes doing and then you're on with your business. So like I said, not a big deal. Got it done. And if you want to get more information, you can email us coverbandconfidential@gmail.com or go to fincen.gov. It's pretty straightforward. And they did what I consider a fairly decent job of making it understandable.
That's good. I'll tell you the thing that you just said that was news to me, that didn't jive with what I thought I understood before, and I believe you over what I thought I understood before. Just to be clear,
I could be wrong, but yeah.
Well, what my understanding had been that an existing business, it was due 90 days after the 1st of January of this year. That happened, a few days ago. The thing you said was it's actually not due for an existing business until the 1st of January next year, 12 months from now.
All right. So it's interesting you said that because I saw 2 different things in the same document and I felt like they contradicted one another. I went with the more generous one.
Okay.
But let's check our work here.
Okay.
This is a press release sent out on December 21st. It does say civil penalties in the amount of $500 for each day of violation, but no more than $250,000 or imprisonment for not more than 5 years or both.
Yeah, no big deal. It's weird that like a 10-minute form fill out could have that big a penalty, right?
Yeah. So according to the FinCEN website, existing companies created or registered to do business in the United States before January 1st, 2024 must file by January 1st, 2025.
Okay.
And that was released 3 days ago.
Right.
From the FinCEN site.
Yeah. And I think what I saw was from before 3 days ago. So one of the things about this is it has felt like as we approached this Jan 1 deadline, it seemed like even the organization that was responsible for it was maybe a little unclear about it. I felt like they were landing building the plane as it was in flight a little bit.
Yeah. So the decision to extend to 2025 was made on November 29th.
Yeah. So thank you. I appreciate that they did that.
I think they were just like, hey, if we're going to find somebody $250,000 and potentially put them in prison for 5 years, maybe let's give them a little bit of time.
Yeah. And it's bizarre that that's the penalty for what amounts to like 15 minutes of work on a website.
Right. Especially considering the number of entrepreneurs who also have ADHD.
Well, yeah, that and I found out about the need to do this on TikTok. Like,
yeah, same.
There was like no big announcement about this. It's really surprising that this is where we've landed.
The interesting thing is the video version of this conversation will definitely go up on YouTube, but I probably will have to go through all of this information and in a TikTok in order for it to, get out to the right people.
Yeah.
Just because this kind of format might be a little too long form, too conversational. Even though they say that's what TikTok wants, I've put our 10, 30.
It's not what TikTok wants.
People do not. Nope.
No.
They're not interested in that.
No.
I'll try to figure out a way to make it in like a minute and a half if possible.
There you go.
Well, that's it. So fill it out, but just know that thanks to people potentially forgetting and being thrown in jail for 5 years, you have almost an entire year to get this put together. Now, this is something that somebody reached out to me about and asked specifically because they were like, well, I'm thinking about letting my LLC lapse. Do I still need to file it? And I have no idea.
Yeah.
And if you have questions, go to the FinCEN website or find a CPA or something.
Good luck finding them there because it's complicated, that website.
Either way, just, go and do that and get it done because it's relatively painless and the alternative is not great.
That's for sure.
Any parting words, thoughts, or well wishes?
I hope that everyone somehow manages to find their way to be in compliance with this new thing in spite of the chaos that surrounds it. And here's to you. Happy New Year. Happy
New Year, indeed. Well, folks, I think that was a lot. It was pretty nerdy. So we'll just cut it at this point.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in. This is the first one of the year, and just know that we've got a tax one in the barrel that we're gonna have to go through, and it's definitely one of our most requested, just popular things that everybody wants to know about.
Yeah. When does the death episode happen?
I mean, technically that was the bonus episode from last week. Speaking of which, this week's bonus episode is going to be a big one.
Yeah.
So all of you in the Patreon at the $10 level will get a good deal of that. And man, the Patreon saga has just been crushing it. I know that it's like a broken record, but the fact of the matter is if you listen to what we say and think that we have any sort of credibility, just know that there are dozens of people in this community that are so much more competent and capable than we are, who are doing such fantastic things.
Yeah.
And if you're in there, I mean, there's like an entire masterclass on Facebook ads that people are getting from other members of the group. It's insane what a very measly investment will get you.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. When we first stood up that Slack channel as a benefit of Patreon, the sales pitch was, come chat with
hang out with us.
Yeah. We're the experts. We know stuff. Oh my God. No, that's not how it has turned out. It's amazing.
Yeah. And it's one of the few places where you can have real conversations where you don't have like ding dongs, trolling your comments. Yeah. I had another friend message me saying that he got banned from the other group.
Yeah.
Because of it can be fun to poke at people, but at some point you may want to find some like-minded individuals who actually want to help you succeed.
Yeah.
So
yeah. $5 a month.
Check it out.
Hard to argue.
If you want to support the show, you can join the Patreon, or you can do any of the stuff that Mike's about to tell you. Otherwise, we'll go and call it for this week. In Atlanta, Georgia, I'm Adam Johnson.
In Greensboro, North Carolina, I'm Dan Ray.
You have been listening to the Cover Band Confidential podcast for the week of January 5th, 2023.